Hello and welcome to the Sky Crypto Intern settings video. So in this video we're going to discuss each and every one of the fields in the Sky Intern or Sky Crypto Intern settings to be able to adjust to your trading style so that you're able to take trades. You're able to let Sky Crypto Intern trade on your behalf on the trade signals that you'll be receiving from your signal provider. Now, if you are a current user of or a previous user of Sky Intern for Forex signals, most of these, if not all of them, are the same. There are some little nuances to it, and we'll discuss this. Now, how do you get to the Sky Crypto Intern settings? One way is that you need to put Sky Crypto Intern onto a chart. Okay, you double click it from the navigator field, and that opens this up so that you can see it. The other way that you can do it is by, if it's already on the chart, then you simply can right click, go to Expert Advisors, and then click on Properties. And some shortcuts, it depends on your system. Some shortcuts is simply by hitting the F7 key on your keyboard. It will open up this same thing. Some of you, depending on your system, depending on your Windows operating system, you might have to hit Function F7 or Alt F7, something that you're going to have to figure that out. Otherwise, you're just going to have to use your mouse and right-click on your screen. Now, once this comes up, it typically, especially after the first time, it'll come straight up to these input settings. Really quickly, if you want to know what version of Sky Crypto Intern, you just need to click on the About page. In the common settings, you want to make sure that this allow DLL imports is checked off, as well as the other boxes. And then you, for the most part, go to the inputs, and this is where you will always spend most of your time putting in your stuff. Now, the first field is email address used to purchase. Very self-explanatory. Whatever email address you used in the purchasing of Sky Crypto Intern, that is the email address that you want to put in there. Plain and simple. Not where your signals are going to. Now they can be the same if you use the same. But again, remember, whatever email address you use to purchase Sky Crypto Intern, wherever you got the email that says, here's your login information, that's the email address you want to use on here. The next 4 fields here is going to talk about the entry of how Sky Crypto is going to take your trades. So when it receives a trade signal from your signal provider, it's going to calculate the lot size. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. One, you can do it by percentage. And what that does is whatever your balance is, typically it's your, typically it uses your account equity to figure that out. But when it takes your balance, and then it also takes your, whatever the pair is, and depending on this percentage and whatever the stop loss is set to, it's going to configure, or it's going to figure out what your lot sizes are going to be for all of your trades, for all of your orders. All right. So in this case, it's going to use the 1%. So if you have a account balance of $3,000, it's going to risk 1% of that on your orders for whatever the trades are. Now, and this is very dangerous and I need to make sure that you completely understand what I'm about to do here. So please pay attention to this. The other way that you can do this is you can set this to a fixed rate. Now, what that means though is that this, in this instance where it says 1.0, what this means is you're going to put one standard lot size. So it's going to be 1.00 is going towards whatever trade that comes in. So this is very dangerous because 1.0 is a very large, it could be a very large trade on one, a very large lot size on one trade. So be very, very careful with that. Now, with that being said, if you have a smaller account and you want to make sure that you use like 0.003 lot size, then that's how this plays part. Okay, this is how you can set that up. Um, if you wanted to use a quarter lot size, then you just put like that. Now, if you change this to percentage, again, what that's going to do is going to put 25%. Oh, excuse me. Actually, it's going to be way less than that. This would be 25%, 25%, which is extremely high. So let me back up. Typically, on average, when a trader places a trade on any given pair, it's normally anywhere between 1 and 3%, or 1 and 5%, excuse me, 1 and 5%. So this will be 1% of the balance, okay? This will be 5% of the balance. 5% is typically seen as a high risk, very risky. But if that's the type of person that you are, then so be it. Any higher than that, again, you're trading at your own risk. And 3% is typically conservative, and for Forex in particular. And so you just got to be very careful with crypto, because it is a very volatile market. All right, so be very, very careful with doing this. Typically, if you're going to start off, normally you would start off with a 1%. And if you want to change this to a fixed rate, make sure that, again, you want to put this accordingly. So maybe 0.003, that's going to be your total lot size, and that lot size will be divvied up to however many orders that you have. So please, 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 very important that you pay attention to what this fixed rate is, because it could very, very easily clear your account out if you don't pay attention. So be very, very careful. So with that being said, let's go. I'm going to go ahead and change this, or put this to for simplicity's sake, let's do we're going to put 0.012 as a fixed rate, right? Fixed lot size, just for simplicity's sake, for easy math. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. So the next line right here, again, and if you didn't notice, if you just double click in each of these fields, that's how you can edit those fields, okay, to change them for whatever you want. Now, in the next one, use all take profits. So this is what this means. If it's set to true, if you have a signal from a signal provider and it gives you 2 or 3 take profits, if you set this to true, what it's going to do, it's going to create an order for each of those take profits. Then what it's going to do is, on this next one where it says lots for take profit 1, 2, or 3 in percentage, it's going to divvy up this lot size right here per these numbers. So 50% of this lot size, which will make it 0.06, will go to the first take profit, the first take profit order. And then whatever remains, 25%, 25%, so that whatever remains would be 0.06. And then 25%, this is 50. So half of that, 0.03 will go on to take profit 2, and 0.03 will go on to take profit 3. So that's going to be how it's divvied up if there's 3 take profits. Now, if there's 2 take profits, what will happen is that these first 2 will combine. So it'll be 75% of this. So basically 0.09 will go on take profit 1, and then the remaining 25% will go on take profit 2. If there is only 1 order that just so happens to come by, the full 100%, which is 0.12, will go to that specific trade. Okay? Now, if this is set to false, this is an advanced setting. This setting is to be used with your break-even configs down here further, as well as your trails. all right, your trails. And again, folks, let me just caveat this by saying if you have no idea what I'm talking about, trailing stop, fractal, break even, partial config, or partial close, please make sure that you go and visit an education program, do your research. This is merely under the premise that you already know what this information is, okay? So this is not an education as far as how to trade, but this is just how to trade it, how to set it up to trade for you with the knowledge that you currently already have. All right, so with this being set to false, what this will do is it will only take, no matter how many take profits there are, it will only take one order, and they will not put any take profit. It will not set any take profit, okay? Again, this is an advanced setting to be used with other things like the trail. But it will use 100% of whatever your lot size is to one order with no take profit. Now, if you only want to take profit one, if you only want to take profit one, and you know this for a fact on every single trade, then you can set this up by doing this. It would be 100, comma, 0, comma, 0. And even though this is set to true, it will only take one, it will only use your first take profit and put 100% of the lot size on there. Even it won't put anything because there's nothing to divide it up to take profit 2 or 3, if that makes sense. All right. So if you only want to do take profit 1 and that's it, and you want it to actually stop at take profit 1, then you want to put 100% here and 0, 0. So I hope that helped. If you only want to set up take profit 1 and 2, then you're going to obviously have to divvy up the percentage here to make sure that there's none left for the third order, and that's how that will divvy up. 75% of that will go to take profit 1, 25% will go to take profit 2. All right, so that's just some quick and down and dirty on how to set this up. And again, completely customizable. What you need to make sure is that these numbers equal to 100. Okay, make sure that these numbers equal to 100. All right, moving right along. Where it says signal filters, you have obviously quite a few settings to mess with. If you have more than one signal provider and you wish to exclude that signal or that trader, all right, that master trader, you simply will put a minus sign and whatever their trading name is. So no trader. All right, if that's what the person's name is, or maybe let's put, we're going to put the minus sign and crypto god. All right, maybe that's what they use for their crypto, for their trader's name. But you're going to put a minus sign and crypto god, and it will exclude Sky Crypto Intern. If it sees a trade from that particular trader, it will ignore it. It will skip that trader. And you will get an alert that says trader has been skipped. Okay? If you have nobody's name in here, by default, it will accept all traders that you're receiving signals from. Okay? If you want to do more than one, if you want to exclude more than one trader, crypto god, you're going to put a comma, a space, another minus sign, and whatever that trader's name is. We'll put Gargamel, whatever their name is. All right. And that, therefore, when Sky Crypto Intern sees these trades, if it has any one of these two names on it, it will not place trades in those people's names. Okay? So we'll go ahead and clear that out. Now this was also important. Skip symbols with open orders. If this is set to true, if Sky Crypto Intern is managing a trade, let's say it has already placed a trade, it has already accepted and placed a trade for you for BTC USD. If it sees another new signal, another brand new signal, brand new trade from the same trader or from other trader, doesn't matter. If this is set to true, it will not place that trade as long as it is managing a trade already. If you don't care, if you want to accept every single trade no matter what, then you need to set this to false. However, understand this. When you set this to false, if you are already managing a trade from BTC USD and you accept another one, inherently that's going to double your risk on that one pair, which typically most traders don't do that. All right, so just be aware of that. So the default is true, but however, you can change it. Margin level to stop trading. Now, for those of you who have heard of margining out, if your account typically gets to 100%, margin level of 100%, then most brokers start to close your largest losses so that they can recoup their money before you actually blow your account. So you can actually set this to a higher level. It's defaulted for 150%, but you can even set this up for 500%. Whatever it is, you can set it up. And what will happen is when Sky Crypto Intern sees that your account is at 500%, then he will not accept any new trades. It will keep trading, but it will not accept any new trades. And again, you can change this for whatever you want. Typically, it's a good idea for much smaller accounts or even larger accounts. It just depends on how you want it. But again, the default is 150. You can put it for 100 if you want. It's completely customizable to you. Next is entry price tolerance in pips. Okay, because again, crypto is such a volatile pair. The number is much higher than if you were doing forex. But what this does is if Sky Crypto Intern sees a trade alert, trade signal, and it's a buy market or a sell by market, which means an immediate market execution, means get into the market right now. Now, if Sky Intern sees it, it looks at the entry price that the signal provider provided. If it is outside of the 50 pip tolerance, outside of 50 pips from that number, it will not get into that trade for you. So this is a protective measure. Okay, it's a protective measure, super important, because you don't want to get into a trade that's already made a move of 200 pips, right? 100 pips, 200 pips. You do not want to get into a trade in that, and then all of a sudden it reverses and then goes all the way back to whatever your stop loss is, right? Because if you have a 100 pip stop loss and this trade has already made a positive 200 and all of a sudden it reverses, you're going to take a hit. You're going to take a loss of 300 pips instead of the original 100. So it's very, very important that you understand using this. So what's important in this specific setting is, and again, this is very important to realize. If you have a fixed calculation, if you're using a fixed calculation, no matter what this is, all right, it's going to use this lot size. Here's the difference. If this is set to percentage, right? This is set to percentage. In this case, if I do 1%, what it's going to do is it's going to, when it calculates what your lot size is going to be, it takes 1% of your balance. But it also depends on the stop loss that is in the trade signal. So when this is set to percentage, it's going to take into account this, and it's going to, when you come into the market, let's say you came in, it's within 50 pips, but let's say Sky Crypto brought you in at 40 pips from where the entry price is. When this is set to percentage, it's going to add that 40 pips to the original stop loss. So let's say the original stop loss was 50. Now it's going to take 90 pips to figure out what your lot size is going to be using 1%. Again, if you don't understand how to figure out what the percentage is, there are position size calculators on well, in actuality, there is none as far as for crypto just yet. But you can still understand, you can still learn how to, how it does it for Forex, and so you'll still get the same idea. So what it's going to do, if it's set to percentage, it's going to add this number, whatever it comes in at. If it comes in at 30, then if it's within 50, right? If it comes in at 30, then it's going to add 30 to the original stop loss. And then use that number to figure out what your lot size is going to be. If it comes in at 50, then it's going to add 50 to the original stop loss. Let's say it makes it 100 pips. And then it's going to figure out what 100 pips, what the lot size is going to be to do that. Now, if this is set for fixed, this is very big, very different. That no matter what, even if it comes 50 pips, right, from entry price, it's still going to keep this lot size as 12, as 0.12. So now, when you actually, if you came in at 50 pips and it reversed, if it reversed immediately from that, it's going to take you all the way down to the original stop loss, which is 100 pips away. So it's going to change your loss much, much higher. In fact, it's going to double it in this case. If the stop loss is 50 pips and it came in 50 pips higher than that, making your total stop loss of 100 pips, it's going to act as if, or you're going to see a loss that's going to look like 0.24. Okay, 0.24. So it's it's going to be very different in how how you're going to use the fixed rate and what your pip tolerance is. So again, if this is a market execution trade, if it is outside of whatever this number is, you can change this to 0, and that means that it has, which you'll never come into any trade really, because the market moves so fast. If you have this set for 20, that means if it's within 20 pips of the entry price that the signal provider gave you, then it's going to activate that trade. If it's outside of it, you will miss that trade. Let's be very clear. You will not activate that trade. Now, there's nothing to say that if you look at it and you catch that, right? You see it happening, and Sky Intern for some reason doesn't take it. You can still take that trade manually, but you're going to have to manually manage that trade. Okay? So this is a protective measure, guys. You really got to understand the whole process to really see how this is a safety measure, and it's made for you. Now again, this is completely up to you. It is defaulted at 50 pips. You can change it to 75 if you want, but the risk is going to be, especially if this is set to fixed, will be extremely high. So make sure that you're testing this all out on demo to kind of figure it out. All right. The next one is a signal delay tolerance. This number refers to the amount of hours that it looks back at your Gmail to check to see if there's any new trades. All right. If there's a new trade within the last hour that it has not read already, then it will pick it. If it's a valid trade, it will pick it up. It will read that email. Okay. Now you can change this to 2 hours, 4 hours, 12 hours, but again, be very, very careful. How do you do this? You don't want it to pick up old trades that have moved dramatically already, and because you could be setting yourself up for a major loss. Symbols to trade. So we do not want to touch this. We do not want to touch this. This will tell Sky Crypto Intern how to calculate the pips. Okay, how to calculate the pips in reference to its pairing. So in BTC USD, it knows to use 100 when it uses to calculate the pips for BTC USD. Now, if there's a pair on here, if it's not on here, Sky Crypto Intern will not take those trades on whatever it is. Notice that there is no XRP USD right now. As of right now, if a trade signal comes in for XRP USD, it will not take that trade because there is no calculation set up for that at this time. Possibly if you start receiving signals that are using or taking on XRP, then in the future there will probably be a calculation set for that. But please do not change the numbers. Do not change any of this information. Otherwise, it could jeopardize how Sky Crypto Intern takes those trades. Moving right along, break-even level percentage. So the break-even configs and the partial close are mostly used in conjunction with each other. So this is how this is going to work. So when the market gets to 50% of the distance between the entry price that it comes in at and take profit 1, then when it hits 50%, this is the default, it will move your stop loss to break even, and then it will add this number of pips to that move. So in this case, it'll add 20 pips to that break even, and it will close 50% of your total lots. 50% of your total lots. Now again, all this is completely customizable. So if you want this to wait a little bit longer before it takes any profit, you can set this to 75%. If you want to take it a little bit early, maybe you want it to take once it gets 25% of the distance between your entry price and take profit, then you can have it move the stop loss to break even. And that'll at least give you a free trade. You can also change the number of pips that it adds. You can add only 2 pips, which again, for a very volatile market, you have to make sure that you take into account the spread. All right. So normally double digits at a minimum is normally for crypto. You want to kind of put a higher spread or a higher break even. If you put 0.0, this is going to move it will not put any pips. It will move it to break even to your entry price, and then it will not add any pips. And then you can obviously change this to close however many percentage. If you only want it to move the stop loss to break even but take no profit, then just simply set this to 0.0. And then it will just continue on moving. And then once it gets to take profit 1, then it will full close at take profit 1 with its full percentage. But again, this is completely customizable to you. I believe 50% is the default. Or you can set to 25. You can take most of your profit 75. It just depends on how you want to set this up. All right. Okay. By the way, Sky Crypto Intern will not take any updates. It will not listen to any updates by the master trader. When a master trader says it's a good time to go ahead and take partial profit, it's going to completely ignore that. The reason why is because Sky Crypto Intern is going to listen to your settings. Okay? Your settings. Now, if you want to take it when the master trader says it, you have the option to do it manually, right? You can take it manually, and or B, kind of figure out what area in which the percentage that they're typically saying, hey, take profit. Okay? And then if you can again, if the master trader says take 50%, then again, you can set this by default, and then every time it should move the stop loss to break even, and it should take about the same amount of your percentage as the master trader kind of lets you know. But again, it's Sky Crypto Intern is going to listen to your settings. What the master traders will tell you are typically recommendations. They are not commands. They're not telling you to do it. They're advising you, hey, it might be a good time. You can completely ignore those if you wanted to. All right? If you were doing all this manually, you could completely ignore that if you wanted to. But Sky Crypto Intern is going to ignore those update emails, and it's going to only follow your commands, which is what your settings say right here. So be aware of that. The next one is stop loss configs. If for some reason you wanted to add pips to the original stop loss that the master trader wanted, maybe you wanted to give it just a little bit more room, because sometimes master traders kind of give you a very, very precise stop loss, and sometimes the market hits it. But maybe the market, if it was just 1 or 2 more pips, the market wouldn't have touched it. So it's completely up to you. It takes a lot of attention to detail with your broker, right? It's very dependent on your broker. It's very dependent on the pair or crypto in general. So, but you have the option to add pips if you want, and those pip count will also be taken into account when this is set to to percentage, right? And figuring out the percentage of a lot size. It will not affect if it's set to fixed. Moving right along, this is critically important here. If you do not have this set to true, it will not use any of the trailing, okay? Any of the trailing options. So if you're going to set, as an example, if you had set this first one to false, where it had no take profit, the advanced way to use this would be using in conjunction with these stops, trailing stop or fractal stop. But if this is set to false, then your trade could go into all kinds of profit, but because the stop loss never moves, it will come back to the original stop loss. So make sure that you understand how to use this properly. So when you set this to true, it will start to use trailing stop no matter what it is, either trailing stop or fractals, depending on the charts, and we'll get to that in a second. Equally, it will once this is set to true, it will activate that percentage. It will activate those trails when it gets to 90% of the distance between the entry price and take profit 1. All right, that's when it'll start to move. That's when it'll start to move in accordance to these settings down here. If you want to change this to 50%, you can. If you whatever percentage you want it to start to activate, then you can set these up. Right now, it is defaulted for 90%. So the next is it will use a 20 pip trail if the original trade is called on these particular charts. So if Sky Crypto Intern gets a trade and the master trader just so happens to call it on the H4 chart, right, or the H1 or anything below, then it's going to use a 20 pip. With this set to true, it's going to use a 20 pip trailing stop. Okay? Now, mind you, these again are completely customizable. A lot of people like using the fractal trailing stop at the higher charts, higher time frame. So if you wanted to move it to H4 up here, just put H4 comma and then just daily after that, and just simply remove it from this chart. All right. So again, completely customizable. You can move all these time frames to fractals if you wanted to. You can move them all to the trailing stop. It's completely up to you. Likewise is if it receives a trade on any one of these, H4, daily, weekly, monthly, then it will inherently use the fractal stop with a 5 pip gap. Okay, 5 pip gap. And that's pretty much again for all the trailing. Okay, if you don't know what fractal stop is, make sure that you go ahead and YouTube it or go to your educational system and go ahead and research what fractal stops are. and how to use them. Okay. The next is the signal configuration, since this is critically important because if at some stage Sky Crypto Intern will be used on through multiple signal providers that provide signals via email. All right, and you'll be able to tailor this to read from those very particular emails. So right now, with it being set, every time you put Sky Intern on the chart for the very first time, every time, all right, these will be blank. What that means is that if it sees an email, it won't read it because it's looking for blank in each and every one of these areas. So when you're about to set this up, specifically for in this case for swipe coin, right, or any other future trade signal provider, you will get a preset to help you put the information in here correctly because it has to be typed up correctly. Syntax, grammar, everything. Okay. If there's an extra space in this and there's not in the trade signal, it will not read that signal. So it's very, very important that we make sure that we type this up correctly. But to prevent those types of mistakes, we're going to give you what should go in there for your particular trade signal provider. So in this case, I loaded a preset that was built for this, and what it did was it went and put this information in there and has been tested to be correct. Okay, so this is how critical this is. If this space between time and frame, if it was only one word, it would completely not listen or read that email. It will read it, notice that it's different, completely different, and then it will ignore it. If there was a space between swipe and coin, all right, if this little / was missing. So very, very important that we make sure that these are match up to the email exactly. Okay, exactly. Which is why we give a preset file so that you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is load the preset file, put in your email address up here, change your settings. You'll save this so that you don't have to do it again in the future, and then you just go simply click OK. So again, these are all going to correspond to the various things in that email so that Sky Crypto Intern can take that trade. The next thing is we're going to work on a broker information. So in a lot of instances, you're going to have brokers that have will have suffixes, right? Specifically suffixes, which is characters at the end of a pair. As an example, let's say BTC USD. Okay, that's the typical way that most markets will put their trade will use to trade. Okay, but there are some brokers out there. In this particular instance, I can't think of another crypto broker that does it. But just in case, as an example, if this was Forex, USD JPY, some crypto, like for instance, Trader's Way will use a lowercase I at the end of their pair. So what will happen is when Sky Crypto, and again, let's relate this. Let me just assume BTC USD. Let's assume that your broker puts a little letter I at the end. Okay. So what Sky Crypto Intern will do was it will receive the symbol and whatever, and let's say it receives it BTC USD by itself. If you put the letter I in here, it's going to add the letter I at the end so that your broker can understand and place that trade. All right? So very, very important. Some brokers use ... Some brokers use a plus symbol. It just depends. Some brokers use more additional letters, uppercase, lowercase. It just depends. So make sure that when you look at your brokers, and it uses different suffixes, make sure you add the suffix to the end to here before you click OK, so that your Sky Crypto Intern knows how to translate it over to your to your broker. Okay, moving right along, we have other settings. You can change the message color once you apply this to the chart. If you have this set to none, if your chart is black, it will make your text white. It will just do the reverse color. If your background is white, it will use black. Or you can even click on it and change it to whatever color you want. Okay, just make sure that if you have a black background and you set this to black, you're not going to see your text. So just be aware of that. Typically, you just set this to none, and it goes the opposite color of black or white. You have the option to send alerts to your email. Okay, and you can set this up in your options on your MT4, but that's not what this is all about. You can also set alerts to your MT4 app. We highly encourage you do this. This is also an option to set up in MT4, but you can change these to true. The next one is digital signal status log. Excuse me. On the left-hand side of the chart, once it's applied, it will show you. It will use however many. It will display that it's checking your email. It was checking your email. It'll give you a nice warm fuzzy feeling that it's checking. If you have it set to true, it will be on. You can turn it off if you don't want to see it moving all the time and showing, but typically most people like to see that and set to true. Display account info on the top right hand side of the chart. Typically it'll tell you what account you're logged into, the broker that you're logged into, the balance, the margin percentage, all that stuff. You can turn that on and or off by setting this to true or false. Additionally, there's another section on the right hand side where it'll display your profit. It'll keep track of your profit of all time, the month, the week, and the day. It will also show you the number of pips for those amount of times, and money and pips won during those times as well. So you can turn that off and on as well. Moving down to the bottom, we're getting to the end here. Now, this one here works in correspondence with this signal status log. It'll show you a number of lines. Okay, if there's too many lines of information there, you want to cut it down to 5, 4, or even 0. Let's say you don't want to see it at all. You can change that number. This is very important. We want to make sure we set this to false. If you have it set to true, Sky Crypto Intern will keep a log that of how it reads emails, right? But if it will continually keep track of that, and that file can get very, 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 very large if you leave this set to, if you put this on to true. So typically what this is used for is for when support will ask you to, if it needs to be, they will ask you to set this to true, let it run for a little bit, and then turn it back off, and then send the file that the information was captured to support so they can do some troubleshooting. But please make sure that you keep this make sure you set it to false, or leave it set to false unless otherwise asked. These two next numbers are very, very, very important to make sure that you do not touch and or change them whatsoever. If you do, Sky Crypto Intern will not work as it was intended to do. Okay, it will not work. So make sure you do not change those two numbers. Do not change those. Now again, with all this information, if what we want to do is that we'll put in our email address, right? We've made a bunch of changes here. We've also made sure we loaded our preset with this, with the information here. And simply all we're going to do is we want to, anytime we make a change here, we want to save this. And we're going to save this, and you can call it whatever you want, my defaults. But we, make sure that you know it's your crypto one. So how about my crypto defaults? And then we're going to save it. Now, even though we saved it, it's not on the chart. We're going to actually click OK to put that information on the chart. And once you go ahead and click OK, what will happen is that Sky Intern will go and check for new signals and then add them accordingly. So that basically concludes our Sky Crypto Intern settings. So if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to support at freedomtradinglab.com. So you could also connect via live chat if you so choose to do so. And also make sure you pay attention to the Sky Intern Telegram channel for any updates, tips or tricks, or any kind of future announcements, to also include your email. All right, so this concludes the settings. I hope this helped, and just wish you happy crypto trading. Take care.